Hola, buenas tardes. Good evening. My name is Abelardo de la Peña Jr. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications with La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. Welcoming you to tonight's En Casa con La Plaza Dan Guerrero Happy Hour. Every other Thursday, we have Dan Guerrero here speaking to the most sparkling individuals on the planet. But before we get started, let's talk about what's going on at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. Let me share the screen with you. This weekend, on Saturday, we have a documentary screening of Los Tigres del Norte Stories to Tell. It tells about the stories of Los Tigres del Norte, of course, one of the preeminent norteño bands in the planet. They'll be, they've sold more than 60 million albums, won 7 Grammy Awards and 9 Latin Grammys, 600 songs throughout their musical journey. They've been sharing their stories, photos, videos, and much more in this documentary. We're not expecting any of the Tigres to show up, but who knows? But for sure, we do have musical performance by Carlos y Charlos. They'll be playing their popular and obscure norteña songs and instrumentals. We'll have a panel discussion ahead of time with the documentary producer and director, as well as members of La Santa Cecilia, including La Marisol. So please show up. It's free of charge. It's at 7 o'clock this Saturday, July 29th. With that, let's bring the host of Dan Guerrero Happy Hour, Dan Guerrero himself. Please zoom in, Dan.
I was being so sad because I can't go on the 29th. That sounds fantastic.
What's going on, Dan? What's going on the 29th?
Vincent Price Art Museum. We're having our I'm getting a free plug. I had no idea. We're having our annual fundraising gala, and it's already completely sold out. I'm happy to say, completely sold out. They're scrambling, and because we like to have people come to the museum, it's actually in our largest gallery. So they're trying to squeeze another table here and there, but you can't. You know, fire laws, you have to be 2 feet from here and 3 feet from there. And so that's where I'll be. And I'm on the board there since 2013. It's on the East LA College campus where I went to school. You didn't go there, did you? East LA?
Well, I have visited both the campus and the museum.
Yeah, it's a fantastic. It didn't look like that when I went there, but so that's the same night. But that sounds incredible. Los Tigres del Norte, not only are they humongous, they're extremely philanthropic. They give a lot of money to so many organizations, and they're good people. They're good people.
Incredible. Looking forward to that. But I won't be there either.
I know, you'll be at VPAM with me.
That's right. Yes. Looking forward to that.
That's all right. That's all right. We're having a kind of, I was going to say a month of journalism, but actually this is July, and we have a veteran journalist tonight, as you know. And then our next guest, which will be August 10th. It can't be August, but it is. August 10th, we have Laura Diaz. 14 Emmys, 14 Emmys for local news. So this is a legendary lady. And I had never met her until we co-emceed the big celebration for Gloria Molina at La Plaza a couple of weeks ago. That's when we met. And I thought, well, I'm going to grab this woman because it'll be interesting. So we have 2 journalism shows back to back, which is a good break from show business people, right?
Well, yeah, but I know that they have some entertainment in there somewhere, but it'll be very entertaining conversations as always.
That's right. That's right. So let's get started with tonight's guest, I guess, right? Let's jump right in.
And so I'll go away and we'll talk in a little while.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Well, tonight's guest at this very moment may not be in her comfort zone. She's more used to asking questions than answering them. And she's a long-time respected veteran journalist who has spent her career covering the news and avoiding drawing attention to herself, which in my business is completely unheard of. I mean, I've known people who've set their hair on fire to get attention, but not this woman. So I'm hoping she shows up. I'm going to see if she does. So let's find out. Zoom in, Monica Rodriguez, if you're there. Aha! How are you?
Well, how are you?
I'm wonderful, and I want to salute your bravery, if I may.
Thank you very much.
Do you not have a beverage?
I have my little Diet Pepsi back here.
I think that's too much excitement for us. I'll just
It is.
smoke it. But you know what I said in the intro is true. I even have a quote from you. I don't know where I found it because you're even hidden on social media, I have to say. But you're quoted as saying, I've made a point of covering the news and have avoided becoming the news. Now, that sounds like someone who's shy or introverted, but you're actually very outgoing. So I don't get that. It doesn't jive to me.
Well, it's like there's this whole thing that when you're in journalism, you tend to do things for stories that you would never do for yourself. So
What does that mean? What does that mean exactly?
That means that there are people I would never, for myself, I would never go up to talk to them, But because I'm working on a story,
you get to.
I will go up to them to talk to them.
And then do you live vicariously by them? So sometimes, like if it's a skydiver, you would never do that, but you like talking to somebody who is?
No, but I think it's not necessarily living vicariously, but it is interesting to approach somebody and say, hey, tell me about that. Yeah. I do have to admit that I've had a couple of assignments some years ago where I went up on what do you call those? An ultralight aircraft.
Whoa.
With these little that are run with these tiny little engines, and that was interesting to going up there. But this was years ago, and then I went on a little submersible once, and that was also pretty cool.
No, snorkeling as far as I go. That any deeper than that, and that's the truth. Well, so you're kind of brave. Now, you first discovered, which I thought was interesting, the world of journalism as it was by watching TV news. You grew up in Boyle Heights. Seems everybody we've been interviewing this last 6 months is from Boyle Heights. We need more East LA people like me, but as long as you're here. You first got intrigued by journalism and watching TV news, local TV news. So how does that jive again? Because I would imagine you're watching somebody on the news. Is it that you saw yourself there delivering the news, or were you?
Actually, no. It was one of those things where it was just like I thought it was extremely interesting that these people had the opportunity to talk to all these they were politicians, they were artists, they were, they did different things. I mean, and it's like, or it was just somebody who did something interesting. But it gave, this job gave you an opening to approach these people, to talk to them. And then when I went to East LA College, and when that's where I took my first journalism class. I found, I was told, well, if you want to go into radio or you want to go into TV, you still have to write. You have to, so that's how I got into writing. And it was like, but as time went by, I got more and more into the whole print side and print aspect of journalism. I kind of forgot about TV, and it was not, I didn't regret it.
No, actually, it sounds like you would be better suited because you do get to do what you love to do, which is talk to people and do that. And yet you didn't have to be Laura Diaz with a camera 2 feet away from you, which is maybe not your comfort zone. Yep.
So it worked. It worked out.
Well, so I see you quite a career. Now, when did you, because I know after ELAC, you went to Cal State Long Beach. Is that when you started to get more and more into print? And if so, when did you really first time think that this was a viable career, that I think I could make a living off this, meaning you were good enough and that you could carve out a career? Was that all at Long Beach?
going back to ELAC, you know, there were times when we would ask our journalism advisor, Gene Stapleton, like, why would, you know, why should we have a journalism degree when there were other people that went into journalism with English degrees or history degrees or, you know, any other type of degree.
Mhm.
But for, you know, but one thing that she told us was, if anything, what the journalism degree does is it shows you're committed to this. It shows your commitment to journalism.
To the craft, to the
Yeah.
craft.
And so it was like, you know what? That's all I have is commitment. So by golly, I'll do it. And that's what I did. By the time I got to Long Beach, I mean, it was just like, yeah, there was no, it didn't occur to me whether I would be able to make it or not. I just went for it. I
Yeah.
just did it. And it was like, and it's like, and at the time it was like, I wasn't thinking of like, oh my God, I'm gonna go for the New York Times. No, I mean, I'm pretty much doing what I wanted to do, which is community journalism.
But it's interesting that you did find your path early. It morphed into a slightly different thing, but the path was clear and you stayed on it. That's fantastic. You know, I find that because I knew right away what I wanted to do as well. And a lot of my friends did. And a lot of the people that I talked to, Gregory Nava, saw a movie and said, there's something called a director. You know, I mean, people found their niche early, which is, I'm grateful, because we all know people that are in their 30s and they're still trying to figure out what they want to do. So that's a gift to have your calling early, and just, it never occurs to you, you know. When I left for New York and my parents were like, you have to have an education, have something to fall back on. And I said, I don't want anything to fall back on. And I didn't. And I never did, you know, so I think that's a blessing. So good for you. I want to hear about what's a very interesting thing. And I think it was after Cal State Long Beach, the LA Times Metro program that really got you onto your real serious career path. Tell us about that.
Well, I was still at Long Beach when I got an application through a friend, another classmate, for MetPro, which is the Minority Editorial Training Program.
Ah.
And so at the time, this was a 2-year program, and I believe there still is an editing program and a reporting program. And she applied. She had sent away for the application, but she ended up getting both applications. So she filled out hers, and then she comes to me and she says, look, there's this, they sent me this application for reporting, fill it out. And it was like, and I'm going like, oh, come on, nobody's gonna take, you know, no, this isn't gonna happen. So she pushed me, and then my journalism advisor found out about it, and he says, you should apply, you should do this. So I did. I applied, and then lo and behold, I get called to do the interview, and lo and behold, again, I got accepted. So that, again, that was like a 2-year program. It was a year with the LA Times, and you know, and they put you through their own training. They sent you out to what they used to call suburban back then, which was basically all, you would get to go to one of the offices.
Times Mirror Corporation of that.
Well, it was still like, no, it was still like the offices that were that the Times has. I ended up in Glendale.
Oh.
And then, you know, you would do all of this, and then after that, then they would send you out for about 6 months to one of their editions, which was, you could either stay with the LA edition, or they would send you to Orange County, or they would send you to the Valley, or they would send you to San Diego. I got to go to San Diego.
But that's fantastic. And you said you think the program still exists. I find
Yeah,
that.
it does exist. It's in a
Wow.
different form, and it's now called the fellowship, the Los Angeles Times Fellowship, and it's a 1-year program. But basically, the concept is still the same. It's, you know, they're training future journalists.
And were there a lot of Latinos in your class back in the day?
Well, no, we were a class of 10. So it's not a huge number of people that are in the
Wow.
program. My class was considered to be one of the bigger classes at 10, but I was one of 2 Latinos, and there were 3 Asians, and there were 3, maybe 4. Okay. And and there were 2 African Americans.
Oh, but that's
So we were a mix.
yeah. But that's a fantastic program. Now, how did you wind up in Allentown, PA from Boyle Heights?
Because my second year with MetPro involved going out to one of the Times Mirror papers, which
That's where the Times Mirror came in.
that's where Times Mirror comes in. And so the Morning Call in Allentown, PA was at the time a Times Mirror paper. And that's how I ended up there.
Wow. And you just took, now was that culture shock? I mean,
Oh God, yes. Definitely. I mean, it was culture shock because yes, there was a Latino community there, but it was still small. It still wasn't as large as it is now. And the other thing was, I mean, it wasn't just the culture shock, it was also, I mean, hey, this is Southern California. We do not get snow. And you get out there and it's like I lucked out the first year because my first year there, there was probably slight snow once or twice. The second year that I was there, we had a blizzard.
not only
That was an
blizzard,
experience in
probably,
itself.
probably know where to buy flour tortillas.
No, there was. In order for me to get let's say Mexican products, to get tortillas, to get
Chorizo.
yes, to get chorizo,
There's no
I
life
had
without chorizo.
I would have to drive out to Reading, PA.
And they had it in Reading, PA.
They
That's
had it in Reading
shocking.
because there was this tiny little store that was run by Mexicans, and they had chorizo, and they brought it in from, I can't even remember where anymore, but they had chorizo and they had avocados, and it
Wow.
was a little slice of California right
Yeah,
there.
the truth is, you probably were better not knowing where they made that chorizo and what it was made of. I'm just saying. Now, let me ask you this. Was this Allentown, PA? Tell me about the newsroom. Was this like the old boys club at that time, I would imagine?
Well, there were women, there were men, but at the time it was still kind of a place where it was the guys had most of the, let's say, the prime beats. And of course they all worked days, and it was like and then most of the women worked nights, and we were like driving out all over the place at night, going to these smaller communities. And I had, my beat was like this far corner of the county where, gosh, I mean, I was driving through these tiny little roads to get to these township buildings that were like surrounded by cornfields or soybean fields. And it was just like, the first time I went to one of those meetings, I literally passed the building twice because it was dark and I could not find the building.
Well, there were probably only 2 buildings in the town, so couldn't have been that hard.
Well, the thing was, it was just like, it's like there were condos, and there were other things, there were houses and all, but the thing was, that's the township building was not where the houses and the condos were.
I'm surprised
For
they had
whatever reason, the township building was like out in the middle of cornfields, and
So there was a long spell there. It seemed long to me. I don't know if it was long to you, where you were in Allentown. You didn't find your Lou Grant there, I guess. And then you were in San Diego, which is cool, Stockton. So you went to a lot of places for a while there, right? So you were moving all the time.
Well, and I was moving I moved around, but there are people who move around way, way more than I do. I mean, so it's like, and I did some moving around, and then I ended up at the Inland Valley Daily Bulletin in Ontario, and I stayed there for a long time.
20 years. You were there like 20 years. That's in
More than 20, yeah.
that's Pomona? Is that Pomona?
Know that the Inland Valley Daily Bulletin is located in Ontario,
Oh,
but it covers the eastern side of LA County and the western side of San Bernardino County. So it straddles the county line in terms of its coverage.
but before we'll talk a little more about that. But as you went to all these towns, etc., were the newsrooms pretty much the same? Whoa.
Well, no, I mean they were I would say that in California these were more diverse newsrooms,
Right.
and there were equal opportunities for women to have to have plum beef.
I
So
thought you said to have corned beef, and I thought,
no.
what does that have to do with it? No, I get it now. But what kind of did you cover? All kinds of stories, feature stories, or did you specialize in one particular genre?
At the Bulletin, basically our beats were basically based on geography. So you would get a town, and then you would cover everything that happened in the town, for the most part, because the crime and public safety beat was generally something that there was a morning person and an evening person.
Mhm.
But but if something happened that they needed assistance over there because the crime folks were busy, then you ended up stepping in if you were available. But for the most part, it's like, no, I mean, you covered schools, you covered city hall, and you covered whatever else there was. While I was at the Bulletin, I covered, I started out in Claremont. There was a point when I had Claremont and Montclair, and then there was a time when I was helping out in Rancho Cucamonga, and then I was in Upland, and then eventually I ended up in Pomona, where I spent a big chunk of my time.
I knew Pomona was in there somewhere, but how did you, because journalism in the last decade has changed beyond all recognition, but did you find journalism changing at city to city and how things were handled, and as times changed, as tech came in, how and of course now you're online, and we'll get to there in a minute, but did you find changes radical, or they just slowly happened and you adapted as you went along?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, that it's like it was a gradual progression. Things just sort of, you could see things evolving. There was a
good
time.
way or not?
It's in a good way. I'm not going to complain. I mean, I think that the hardest part was when, you ended up seeing your publications downsize, and you're losing people, and there's more fewer people have more responsibility. And that was the hard part. But in terms of the tech aspect, no, I mean, yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I did complain. I was the grumpy old woman that said, Twitter, what is Twitter? Why do I have to do this? But you know what? The more I used it, the more I got the hang of it. And I also found that it did have a place in journalism.
Yeah.
So
go
I
ahead.
was good with it.
Well, you have to adapt. I think
Yeah.
I think so many professions, of course, change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worst. And if that's what you do, then you gotta
roll with it,
Although I do find, like, when I was producing for television, I was a creative producer. I'm still a creative producer, but I'm saying that's what I did. And I had the ideas and no, we'll do this and we'll do that, blah, blah. And now television producers, they have to write the scripts. They have to do their own editing. It's like they have to do I probably couldn't be a producer today, because all that is overwhelming to me. So some things change radically, really radically, because they have to do, even actors today used to go in an audition. Now they have to self-audition. So now they're having to learn how to upload and download it. It's just, it's challenging, but that's what you have to do. And then along came a fellow named Jesus Sanchez, right? And you find yourself online. How big a difference was that? Because it still has now you're writing for the weekly, but that's newer. But if you started with the Eastsider as a freelancer. How did that come about, and how different was it to be writing for an online as opposed to print, if at all?
Well, at the time, he put out I'm going to call it an ad. I'm going to call it a notice that in the Eastsider, saying that he was looking for a freelancer with that was interested in doing education stories and that had some background in education. I think that's what it was. And he'll correct me when he comes on. But I thought, why not? I'll give it a shot.
Okay, so
and it was like, and I knew that it was right because I could, he asked for your resume, samples, and a cover letter. And in my mind, I wrote the cover letter like in 5 minutes. And I thought, oh, this is a sign.
A good sign.
So do it. And I did it.
But let me ask you this. So that means you were already a reader. You obviously already.
Oh, yeah.
And how did you discover the Eastsider? Because I think you started that in 2008, a long time ago, right?
Yeah. And I discovered it because I was looking, something had happened and I can't remember what it was, but it was some kind of like crime related situation that had occurred somewhere in my neighborhood. And I went on a Google search to see who might have information. So I plugged in what I knew about this, and lo and behold, the Eastsider popped up, and the Eastsider had information on that incident. Wow. So I thought, okay. So that's how I started, I started following, what was going on the Eastsider.
So this is obviously after you left that 20-year gig. So were you in retirement and came back out, or were you? No,
the thing was that I ended up getting laid off from the Bulletin because we were downsizing again, and
you'd survived quite a few of them already. But
I'd survived a few, and I just sort of said, you know what, I will just volunteer to be laid off, and they accepted. So
you were looking for a gig. You were kind of looking for a gig.
I was kind of, but I was, I was doing freelance work for places like Cal Poly Pomona, and for other universities, and I was still doing some freelance work for the magazines that my old the folks at the Southern California News Group, some of the magazines that they had at the time. So it was cool. I mean, I had an opportunity to do different kinds of writing, but I was still writing. And then like I said, this was, it was freelance work, and Jesus was looking for freelance. So I thought, okay, this is cool. Let's see.
Fits right in. So I think we should because he's lurking in the shadows somewhere as we speak. So let's give him a proper introduction, because he is your boss, right?
He is my boss.
Yeah, we want to be nice to him, So here's his introduction. He is truly an award-winning publisher of the Eastsider that also brings us the East Side Weekly, which is where our friend works. And he's a former staff writer at USA Today and the LA Times. And he's enjoyed a career in journalism of over 30 years. He's really a very interesting fellow. And so, and I think it's for him to have started this Eastsider so long ago and that he's still there. There's the East LA. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, wait, slow down. You show us the other one first, Abelardo. Let's see the weekly. Or not. Okay, forget it. Let's bring on our friends. So, okay, there's where you have been now toiling, actually only from this earlier this year. But prior to that, you were at the Eastsider. There you go. So now let's zoom in Jesus Sanchez. There you are.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine. I see so many ELAC alums. I am also an ELAC alum.
Did you go, or you didn't go to ELAC, did you?
Oh yeah, Husky.
Wow.
Husky through and through.
Yeah. I'll bet you I'm the only one that was at ELAC when we sat in Quonset huts.
Oh no, you were not. We were also in the huts next to the parking lot in the journalism school.
Yeah, that was another time.
Oh geez.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for joining us tonight, and I'm so
Thank you for the invitation.
I toast you because you're publishing not one but 2 online publications. That is not easy, so I salute you.
Thank you. It is not
easy. And did you really start the Eastsider in 2008?
Well, I also worked at the LA Times, and I got laid off in 2008, and so it was at the Great Recession. So there weren't many other jobs. So I just thought I want to keep my writing journalism muscle going. So I thought, well, I love my neighborhoods. I'm really interested in the history and what's going on. So I just started this as a calling card to see what and I could prove that I can write. And it was a calling card, but no one came calling. So then I just decided, okay, let's try and make it a business. So probably within a year to 2, I got a business license and then started selling ads and, doing all the other editorial stuff on my own.
That's incredible. I mean,
and it started with the Eastsider, yes.
I mean, that is incredible because I just read yesterday, as you know, the Santa Barbara News Press, a print newspaper that's been around 150 years, a Pulitzer Prize along the way, posted its last online edition last week, a month after ending the print. Even people like that. And they fold everywhere. So to have kept one going this long and to add the weekly, that's really to be celebrated. I mean, that's not easy.
Well, thank you. No, it's not. And it's, since we've been around, I've seen 3 other neighborhood community newspapers, which are kind of the lifeblood of many areas, except for ours, because, community papers in LA are kind of few and far between. But yeah, it's a struggle. There's always been a lot of interest in news, and I was surprised, to tell you the truth, because on my little way, I thought, well, this is going to be my exercise. No one's going to really care because, God, there's every major media here in LA, newspapers, radio, TV, other bloggers. Who's going to need another one? And, lo and behold, not everyone's a news hound and is out searching different sites. So, we found some value in kind of pointing people in the direction of news. But, I started the Eastsider, and then we're shifting more into newsletters just because it's a more personal way of dealing with things. But it was the closure of a newspaper, the Eastern Group News Press, that used to print a series of newspapers. When I grew up in East LA, we used to get the Belvedere Citizen.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the Belvedere, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a monthly, I think, at the end. And we wrote about when that company closed. They were out of Lincoln Heights. And so, that was 2018, 19. So since then, places like East LA have been like a news desert. There's really been no dedicated news outlet. And so,
no, go ahead.
Well, as someone who grew up there and that's where my parents met. That's where I lived for a long time when I was a kid. Came back, lived with my grandmother there. Went to East LA College, not in East LA, but we're around. I just always felt like just always got overlooked in a way. I mean, there was always crime news, and there was always a nice cultural feature, but there was no really basic news coverage that a lot of other communities take for granted, the basic nuts and bolts of journalism. So that's, we've actually had 2 attempts at the East LA Weekly. The first one actually was during COVID, and we got a Facebook grant. And we started that, and that Facebook grant ran out. And then a year later, and thankfully, Monica was on board covering education stories, we secured a grant from the Google News Initiative to help jumpstart us. So that, again, pointing out that East LA is a community of 125,000 people, mostly overwhelmingly Latino immigrants, large part Spanish speaking. Again, no one really covering it on an ongoing basis. And I mean, Monica can talk about how hard it is to get, information on basic police, statistics, public meetings, making people just providing little neighborhood profiles. It's just been missing. So I think that's been one of the more rewarding things to do.
What I was going to ask is that I would imagine you don't have a very large staff. I can't imagine you. Correct. So Monica, you brought Monica on, and you didn't know each other. I thought you had known each other prior, but obviously not, because you saw the ad. What was it about Monica that you instantly saw would fit into your vision for it, and for the week? And you were starting something new, I guess, with the week.
Yeah. Well, I basically still look for writers who have a journalism background, and there's always a debate that you don't really need a journalism background to be a writer, but there are certain ethical policies in the way in terms of fairness, and it's basically journalism is a vocation. You learn it by doing, and if you don't have it, it's if you're a writer, you're still not you're missing half of everything. So Monica had plenty of solid experience. And
she worked in Allentown, for God's sake.
Oh yeah. And she was also, I was in MetPro too, by the way. So
really?
Yeah. But she was also
how many really are on your staff? You have a gaggle of freelancers, is that it?
I said we could all fit in a swan boat at Echo Park Lake. It's basically it's 4 not including myself, but 4 part-timers.
But that's incredible. And so you're having to get ads, and I mean that you stay afloat. I just am agog. Really?
Well, yeah, it's a little, yes, I it's been surprising too. So, but we kind of work on and see, and that's why, we're like Monica, I am very reluctant to make a public appearance of any kind. I really want to stay behind the scenes, but it's become much more urgent that we let people know that that news just doesn't happen. That it might be free, but it costs something to produce.
Yes, of course.
And it's a lot of time to produce it if you want to fact check it and present it in a way that people can access for free. That's entertaining. So it just doesn't happen, and people do complain. It's like, oh, wait a minute, now I have to sign up for a newsletter to get your stuff. I'm like, that's the least you can do. If you want to do that, you can send a check to the Eastsider, and we will talk.
How do people subscribe?
Again, our newsletters are free, so you just go to the eastsiderla.com, and there's 2 big spots there on the homepage, front page. One is for our daily digest newsletter, which now goes up to over 10,000 folks. And that covers all of, the East Side, or the greater East Side, as I call it, from East Hollywood to East LA. And then we have the East LA Weekly as well. There's a spot there, which I believe you are a subscriber. Thank you so much for that. And then we also have an Echo Park Weekly as well, too, newsletter.
Wow. So you must not sleep or eat. You're just working all the time with just so few of you.
It can seem that way, yes.
And Monica, what kind of a boss is he?
Be nice. Actually, no, not being nice. It is true. he has been one of the most supportive bosses I've had.
I will tell you, when I called him and I said, he said, "Oh, I'm so glad because she deserves some attention." That's the first thing he said. I didn't know at the time you were hiding from attention, but he said he wanted people to get to see you and know you, and that's the truth. So that is a nice guy. Yeah.
No, it's like I can't say enough about my boss. He's very cool, he's very understanding, he's very flexible. Like I said, he's very supportive.
Yeah. Abelardo, do you want to come on and join us for a little chit chat for a minute? Do you have any questions yourself?
I sure do. Hello there.
Right.
Fascinating. I've been in journalism in some way or fashion throughout my career. Now I'm working marketing and communications, but of course, journalism is so important to our community. What I'd like to know, first of all, is for the East Sider, what is your coverage area? What areas of the East Side do you cover?
We cover from I call and again what is the East Side has always been a big debate that has followed me all these years. But we cover basically right now from East Hollywood, Los Feliz to East LA, Lincoln Heights, Eagle Rock, El Sereno, Echo Park, Silver Lake, Atwater. It's too big of a territory, but it's what interests me. And we don't do downtown. So.
You
There's
don't
enough people doing downtown, but that
Yeah, no,
covers a lot of
exactly.
territory. That
Yeah,
covers
no, yeah. It's just I just always viewed the connections, and again, that was just my personal travels and people I knew. We all like, oh, I know someone in Lincoln Heights, and again, people like, oh, I went to ELAC, and so they live in Atwater now. That kind of
Everyone
stuff.
went to ELAC all of a sudden.
Yeah, no, he's
Except Abelardo.
oh, he went to
I'm
LACC.
a Harbor area guy. I went to Harbor College.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Right. Let's see. We have a couple. We have Las Angelitas del Pueblo. They tuned in on our Facebook page. Monica, when you came on, they said, "What a sweetheart."
Ah,
And Beatriz Ochoa, a very frequent visitor of En Casa con la Plaza Dan Guerrero Happy Hour. She shout out to Boyle Heights.
yes. Yeah. But it's funny because I love Boyle Heights. I'm there a lot as well. But Boyle Heights people are no, I'm not East LA, it's Boyle Heights. And of course, East LA people, no, I'm not in Boyle Heights, I'm in East LA, and each very proud of their neighborhood.
Yeah, no, that was one of the things I think I mentioned to Monica. I grew up in East LA. But when we go to my parents, their doctors and stuff were in Boyle Heights, and I would just always thought Boyle Heights was the city, and East LA seemed much more country. It was like little homes, more spaces. That was my impression as a kid.
We're going to the country for the weekend on Cesar Chavez and Atlantic Boulevard.
Yes.
Has the East Sider ever enjoyed a scoop that you've been able to beat out the other publications, both major and minor?
Yesterday, Miss Rodriguez there basically found out that sadly this suspect who's been assaulting women across East LA had been arrested in Mexico, and so we basically posted that on Twitter and Facebook before anyone else. So it's little scoops like that set us apart. Big scoops like that, but it's the smaller scoops that people do not write about, like the again, getting back to Monica's story, the nonprofit jiu-jitsu school in East LA on First Street. Again, it's stories I want to be first on, but I also want them to be kind of unique and something that hasn't been reported before.
Thank you. And for Monica, what has been like your highlight of your journalistic career?
In some ways, it's what I'm doing now, because I'm getting to use the skills that I acquired over the years to cover people now granted, I'm not I didn't grow up in East LA, but I consider it part of my community because I went to ELAC, because, Jesus and his family would come to Boyle Heights for doctor's appointments or whatever. And in my case, my parents and we would go to East LA for stuff. So it was, so it's kind of like it's I consider it in many ways part of my community. So I, in that sense, it's like, yeah, that this is the most fun in some ways that I'm having.
And did you find a difference, from print journalism and writing for online? I guess journalism is journalism, or is there a difference in style or anything?
There's a difference in how you do it, and poor Jesus, because Jesus and my editor for education stories, Robert Fulton, I put them through a lot of pain and agony, I think, because I tend to write long. And when you're writing for digital, you're writing tighter. And
Yeah.
it has to, because the reader is, they're not going to sit there and pick up the hard copy of the publication. They're often reading on their phone.
Yeah.
So they're only going to spend so much time. So you got to give it to them fast, and you got to, you got to get in, you got to get out and move on.
And
They're not, because they're not going to stick with a long story.
No, and that's the truth, because I read only in the morning. I do the LA Times and the New York Times, and I'll start a story that seems interesting, and I'm reading, and then I'll scroll. I go, oh God, I can't read that long, and I'll move on. I will. I know that's terrible, but I'm like, oh, I've got fish to fry. I can't read. I can't read a 20-minute story. I just can't. It's not a good thing. And as I say, it's interesting because I have a friend, very intelligent, sophisticated woman. Same thing. She's like, I can't read long stories. It's people's attention spans and getting to the next thing, I think, is just there. It's just prevalent.
Yeah, regarding education, what is the issue that maybe hasn't been written about or exposed that you think should be, Monica?
Oh, wow. It's probably not that it hasn't been written about, but it's probably because one of those things that is going to need more time, where you're gonna need, at some point we're gonna have to write about still COVID, and how you're gonna bring uh, kids who lost, like, 2 years of education. How are you gonna bring them back to where they're supposed to be, because they fell behind. So I think that's still something that hopefully we'll be able to write about in the future.
But they were already behind even before.
Well, yeah.
It's sad but true. I mean, the education system is pathetic, especially in certain neighborhoods. So they're already behind. It's a problem. It's a problem. Anyway, do we have to wrap? Because this is interesting, but how are we doing?
We're doing okay. One more question for Jesus. As far as juggling publisher and editor, what are the decisions that you need to make on a daily basis that really challenge you?
The big challenge is not to get wrapped up in the editorial side. That's what I get into. But and I've told Monica this before. It's like, the more time I spend editing you, the less time I spend trying to make money to keep everyone hired. So that has been the big struggle. And I guess my biggest failing in a way is that, like, right now I got this other screen. I'm like fiddling with tomorrow's newsletters and stuff, so I can't stop. But that's a common thing, because there were so many layoffs in journalism. You have so many entrepreneurs or solo entrepreneurs like myself who are journalists first, have started publications, but in order, publications, they're a business. And I was a business reporter at the LA Times, but I learned a lot about business. I discovered how little I knew until you run even a small operation like this, managing people, encouraging people, being a salesman, dealing with tech stuff, ordering business cards, Monica. I'm going to order business cards. I'm not worried. They should be on the way. So that is the biggest challenge, is trying to keep the editorial product, produce the best we can, but at the same time, I got to sell. I got to sell ads. I got to get grants, that kind of stuff. So it's a different challenge.
That kind of thing takes you away from what you really are as a journalist. As journalism, and it takes you away from that. But you got to keep going.
It does. It's partly I find it interesting. The challenges are interesting. I wish I had more experience and time to devote to that, or someone else who would if we had enough grants and funding, we could sort of afford a full-time editor. Robert, now, like I said, everyone's part-time, so I think that would make a difference. But that's been the biggest challenge. Is we don't suffer from a lack of readership. It's basically like a lot of other journalism institutions, from our site to the LA Times, is making money to basically go out and report and write news and pay people what they're worth.
You could have somebody that only gets ads and only get, that's all they do.
Yes. Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
We have a question here from Las Angelitas del Pueblo. Do either of these luminaries teach?
I do not.
No, I wouldn't have patience for.
We'll leave it to the professionals.
Yes, exactly.
From Beatriz Ochoa, what kind of internship opportunities are available at the Eastsider for high school or college kids that might be pursuing a journalism career?
Good question.
Very little. Just because, again, I believe internships you should learn from your editor, and right now I'm stretched so thin. We are very fortunate this year that we do have a student. We had students that I worked with from Cal State LA. In this case, USC. In this case, this summer we have someone from Occidental working with stuff. So it's part of the issue is providing enough feedback to someone who's starting out. And I'll be honest with them. I said, I probably am not going to be able to do that. And you're going to be it would be a disservice to you in a way. But when I can, if I find someone who has enough experience and is in a journalism program where I think they've covered some of the basics, I can work with them, and then we find out, like, well, if you're going to need more work, it's not your fault. It's just I don't have the time for that. So, but we do, we've had folks work as photographers, on social media as well too. That's another big important thing now as well, and that's another big important element in for journalism, for up and coming journalists. They gotta, it's their marketing.
Thank you. All right, Dan, that kind of wraps it up. Any parting words?
What?
Final thoughts.
Yes. You should go into something steady like show business. That's my final thought. Well, I've been doing journalism my whole life. I had a weekly column at Garfield.
Oh, okay.
I had a weekly column at ELAC.
Oh.
That's right. And when I started to write a column for Dramalog, which was a trade publication out here from New York. And then when I moved back to LA, I did a column there and interviewed everybody from Raquel Welch to Rita Moreno to Lucille Ball for years. So I never took any journal. I don't think I tried. I just kind of write like I talk, which is frightening, I know. But I don't remember if I must have taken a journalism class along the way, but I like writing. I wrote my solo show. So.
Well, if we have an internship slot next summer, I'll let you know so we can see.
Please do, because I'm looking for one more thing to do, for God's sake. Thank you so much. I enjoyed you both very much. And we know to go to the eastsiderla.com. And
yes.
Abelardo, I'll see you at VPAM tomorrow night. And then we have Laura Diaz next time. That'll be interesting. So you should tune in and see what she has to say about journalism. Zoom in, not tune in. Thank you
Well, thank
all
you so
very
much.
much.
Thank you very much, Monica. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting the both of you. And thank you so much for the work that you do in spreading the word about what's going on in our community. Oh, it's essential work. And thank you, Dan, as always, for these great in Casa con la Plaza, Dan Guerrero happy hours. You could catch, if out there, our visitors out there, if you did not catch this entire episode, you can, we have been taping it. It'll be on our YouTube page at La Plaza LA, on our Facebook page at La Plaza LA, and also on our website at lapca.org, where you could catch all of our activities that are going on, including, as I mentioned before, the Los Tigres del Norte documentary coming up this Saturday. And I'm just going to share screen one last time. A big show that we're preparing for, 18th and Grand, the Olympic Auditorium. We opened on August 11th. It's a incredible exhibition that we're preparing that takes place in our gallery downstairs on the first floor, and also on our gallery on the second floor, with objects, photographs, text, videos, costumes, and so much with gear of all the years that the Olympic Auditorium was a mecca of boxing, lucha libre, wrestling, roller derby, punk rock concerts, and much more. On August 20th is our opening celebration, starting off with some platicas with the co-curators, Steve DeBro and Jean Aguilera, along with Gustavo Arellano will be there, and a few other folks, and then followed that evening on Sunday, August 20th, with KCRW's Summer Nights with Jose Lopez as the DJ, and featuring Jungle Fire playing their funky Latin, Afro-Latin music. So check us out at lapca.org, on our Facebook page at La Plaza LA. All the information is there, and we hope to see you all there soon.
Sounds like fun.
Right.
Good night, everyone, and thank you for zooming in wherever you are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, y muy buenas noches a todos, y nos vemos hasta la próxima. Bye-bye.